Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.
Hello and welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hirodhatia. We have with us Aditi Nair, Principal Economist at ICRA, joining in. Welcome to the show, Aditi, and pleasure to have you once again. Aditi, the last time we spoke with regards to the overall growth outlook, we were still slightly grim. Expectation was that FY21 will probably be a lower single digit, double digit decline as well. However, now with the kind of revival we are seeing, the kind of opening up that we are seeing with regards to the manufacturing side of business as well, and the service sector in totality, how do you think the recovery is panning out from the lows of the pandemic induced lockdown?
Absolutely. We are clearly on the path of a recovery, and we are seeing that many sectors are coming back at a faster pace, whereas there are still sectors that are lagging as far as the overall recovery is concerned. So, firstly, I think the main takeaway we've had over the last several months is that the recovery is indeed very much underway. Secondly, it's a very differentiated recovery. So we've got segments which are now considered to be essential, during the work from home, during the stay at home, which are seeing a much faster recovery. There are segments where you are replacing dependence on help, for example, things like washing machines, dishwashers, dryers. Those segments will do well during this period. Work from home, school from home, laptops are extremely important. Then there is entry level segments of certain items like automobiles, for example, which we expect to do very well in this segment. At the same time, there are premium categories of other items which are also expected to do well. So low ticket premium items, whatever is offsetting consumption that used to be out of home and is now being done in home, there we would expect to see the premium segment doing well.
Mm.
Other things like mobility, automobiles, two-wheelers, cars, we are more expecting the entry-level segments to do well. So it's a very differentiated recovery. And the contact-intensive sectors are showing some improvement because of fatigue, but it's still something that we expect is going to lag the recovery in the wider economy and take basically the longest to recover. So overall, very differentiated recovery. We've seen spikes in September and October, but we
Mm.
think that those are more because of pent-up demand that is getting manifest during the festive season, partly because of discounting, partly because of fatigue, partly because of
Mm.
LTA and festive advance schemes. So all of this is coming together into a very robust festive season, but it's an exaggeration of the trends on the ground, and we do
Mm.
expect things to sort of taper back and normalize a little bit after the festive season is over. So, as of now, our GDP forecast, which we had revised after the Q1 data,
Mm.
is a contraction of 11%. Like you said, a low double digit
Mm.
contraction. We have now penciled in a better recovery in Q2 as well as in H2 as compared to what we thought earlier. But
Mm.
we are waiting for the Q2 data, which is going to be released in 4 days. And after that, we're going to finalize our forecasts for the full year. But likely that we are now going to come back to a high single digit contraction from a low double digit contraction. So,
Right.
a somewhat improved scenario as compared to the last time you and I spoke.
Right. So, Aditi, when we say a somewhat improved scenario right now, do you think this is just a bout that will not sustain going ahead? Because what's happening is with the pandemic, it's made it absolutely impossible for the government to actually navigate between the trade off between, say, lives and livelihood. If they try to save lives by declaring lockdowns, you may almost certainly jeopardize livelihoods, which in an economy like India, we are probably dominated by informal means of livelihood, and that is going to threaten lives. You have IMF as well, who's come out and said that there is going to be a structural fallout, and this will probably be a deep recession from here on, and they have not really changed their stance, which they gave earlier. What would this really indicate? Do you think this is something which is not sustainable right now?
Definitely, we don't think that the spike in October is something which is going to prove to be durable. So we do think that things are going to fall back into a more tempered pace of recovery, which is what we were seeing until August, September. And that is a more likely representation of how things are going to sort of grind back to normalcy. There is a lot of fatigue. There is an alteration in both people's behavior and in the way that corporates are viewing and managing this crisis, and that has led to the recovery that we've seen so far. But it's going to be difficult to sustain. And certainly, if there is another countrywide spike in cases of COVID-19 infections, similar to what we've seen in Delhi, for example, in the months, then that is a very real risk that we need to be watchful of over the next couple of months. And therefore, we still remain circumspect regarding the extent to which we think that overall there will be an improvement in the growth trends or the underlying trends in H2. As of now, we are looking at a small contraction in H2, and we would need to see durability of the recent upticks to be convinced that the economy will be firmly out of a recession in Q3 or in Q4. Q1, obviously, we are expecting a high double-digit growth. The issue is whether we end up seeing a small growth in Q3 or Q4 itself. Even if we see it in Q3, will it sustain into Q4 when we don't have the benefit of the festive season?
Right. So with this, if you talk about the RBI projection of growth, or if you talk about IMF, it's pretty much in that 10 to 11, or say 9 to 11% bracket. Now, when IMF came out with its advisory as well, they've clearly abandoned their traditional conservative attitude towards, say, fiscal prudence, and they're actually encouraging the union government to, say, increase their spending, and they're nudging the RBI as well to resume their aggressive role in cutting rates. Is that something which you would also go with if you were to advise, or if you would have to think as to what needs to be done at this current point in time?
So let me talk about the second one first. As far as inflation is concerned, we've had some very ugly prints, to be blunt. And looking at the way things have panned out in the last couple of months, there is now very little reason to believe that we're going to have benign prints on the core inflation side. With this level of recovery, the stickiness that we're seeing on the core side is something that is likely to strengthen going forward. And we no longer expect that we're going to get a lot of support from the core inflation side. On food inflation, it is cyclical. Once vegetable prices crash back to normal, as they eventually will do, we will start to get better prints. And then we will have a period of good base effects as well. But that is something which is very cyclical, and we need to be a little careful about it. To my mind, the space for further rate cuts is becoming narrower and narrower, and the timing is getting more and more prolonged. So as of now, we do not expect any rate cuts in this fiscal year. Whether we get that final rate cut in April or in the June policy is something that the next couple of months of inflation data will help to determine. On the spending side, it's actually been quite interesting. We got high spending from Government of India in Q1, and then we got a contraction in Q2, both from the center and from the states. As everything else has recovered, what we found is that it's government spending which has pulled back. And in fact, we expect that this is going to be one of the reasons that growth, the recovery in terms of the pace of contraction is going to be arrested in Q2, because government spending has sort of turned around into a very subdued situation, even as the rest of the economy has recovered and come to grips with how to deal with the crisis. So it's quite an interesting situation. On the central government side, the expenditure management measures are clearly winning out over the fiscal stimulus packages which have been announced so far. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that even though we've got this latest round of fiscal support that Government of India has announced, we don't think that the increase in expenditure is going to be commensurate, because a lot of it will be financed through savings that the expenditure management measures are generating. On the side, the issue is more what is the borrowing that they are allowed to do.
Hmm.
because they are going to remain constrained by the contours of the borrowing permission from Government of India. And therefore, we think that there's a lot of capital expenditure which some states will have to curtail or defer this year to be able to remain within the borrowing limit.
Right. So, Aditi, with this, if you have to compare India to the other countries as well, especially when you look at, say, a Bangladesh, China, Vietnam, the COVID impact in terms of Bangladesh, China, Vietnam, they're still in the positive. India seems to be the worst if you have to still compare ourselves to, say, Pakistan or emerging developed Asia, United States, or any of the other regions across, because we've seen the highest deceleration that's happened. Do you think we will still see a V-shaped recovery and there will be a rapid rebound that will continue? Or do you think that the government still needs to do a lot to see that V-shaped recovery?
We don't think the recovery will be V-shaped. We expect it to be more of a swoosh, and we expect it to be very differentiated. So the K-shaped analogy, I think, is actually a pretty good analogy that it's not going to
Hmm.
be full recovery across the board. There will be winners and losers, and sectors that will gain from what has happened to consumption and to behavior during the pandemic. What does the government need to do? Clearly, if fiscal was not a constraint, I'm sure the government would have spent a lot more. But fiscal constraints are very real. We can't get away from that, and especially for a
Hmm.
country with a fiscal structure and a revenue and expenditure structure like India's, it is difficult to sort of just go all out on spending. So they have been cautious, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. To make sure that you remain sustainable and on a reasonably sustainable path going forward as well. For a country like India with interest costs as high as they are, even after all of the measures from the RBI, liquidity infusion, etc., to help talk down yields, interest payments are something that becomes structurally, you get stuck with them for several years.
Hmm.
So we need to keep that in mind that we don't want a larger chunk of future years' revenues to just get eaten up into interest payments because expenditure was not cautiously undertaken in a pandemic situation like this.
Right.
Also, India's demographics, I don't think it's
Hmm.
a very fair comparison with a lot of other countries. We are in a unique position and we have to take our own decisions in how to navigate this crisis.
Right. So, Aditi, overall, if you have to take growth into consideration, last couple of years, we'd already seen a slowdown from, say, 2019 getting into 2020 already. Now, how long do you think we would take to get to pre-COVID levels according to you? Because earlier we were thinking that, say, end of 2022 is something which should be taken into consideration at least. Do you think that's getting pushed away to see at 23 or 24 to get to pre-COVID levels in terms of growth?
See, it's two different things. If pre-COVID levels in terms of GDP, I think we will reach sometime in FY22, and exactly when we reach it will depend on whether or when a vaccine becomes widely available. Other than that, pre-COVID growth, that is something that may take a little bit longer to achieve. Our view now is that looking at how growth halved between FY17 and FY20, that the potential rate of GDP growth is possibly closer to 5 to 5.5%. So,
Mm.
what level of GDP growth are we talking about over here? Getting back to an 8% growth, we may get it for a year or two just as the economy is reviving out of the crisis. And so,
Mm.
obviously, we may get a couple of years of high growth. But after that, we fear that growth is going to settle somewhere in that 5 to 5.5% range, which is
Mm.
clearly something which is much lower than what we aspire for. So, it is going to be a difficult grind to get back to the growth trajectory that we wish to see, which is closer to that 7 to 8% on a sustained basis.
Right. So, when we talk of this, Aditi, we just spoke about the government spending in Q1 FY21, and post that, a shrinkage that has come in. In fact, if you see the historical capex as well by the states, that has seen a major cut right now. I think it's the highest since 2001. That was the kind of data I was looking at. Do you think from here on, the state governments will have to continue taking further cuts in their budgeted capital spending?
Absolutely. In fact, this is a risk that we've been flagging at ICRA for several months now. That the way that state finances are panning out in terms of the revenue shock that they are undergoing, and the fact that their borrowings remain restricted. They don't
Correct.
have the option of just going ahead with whatever level of borrowing they need to be able to protect their expenditure. And their revenue expenditure is sticky. So what will get curtailed? Capital expenditure.
Hmm.
And we've done a state-wise analysis which is showing us that there are some states which are at a risk of a huge curtailment in their capital expenditure relative to the budgeted levels, and
Hmm.
other states which are relatively protected. So again, over here, it's another sort of differentiated situation that we are looking at, where some states that started off on a stronger fiscal structure with
Hmm.
revenue surpluses will be able to manage their budget a lot better with the borrowing limit which is now been allowed. But other states which started off with a structural large revenue deficit will then struggle to be able to find space to be able to incur a reasonable amount of capex in this year.
Right. And with this, when you talk about the borrowing as well, uh, how do you see borrowings increasing? Do you think there is a case for even more borrowings by the center right now?
See, the case for borrowings will be dictated by how much expenditure they wish to and are now able to undertake in the second half of the year. Uh, like I was saying earlier, we see a clear trend that the expenditure management is winning out over the fiscal stimulus.
Hmm.
And looking ahead as well, as we get into Q4, there will be clear restrictions on how much expenditure can be undertaken given the extent guidelines which are anyways there.
Hmm.
It's unlikely that we're going to see a huge bump up in expenditure in H2. We've already got the data till September.
Hmm.
That's pretty much flat over last year. So if we are not going to be able to incur a lot more expenditure now, then the need for additional borrowings is therefore going to be limited. On the revenue side, if the recent trends continue, then perhaps we would have expected that borrowings would need to be enhanced by about 1 to 1.5 trillion.
Hmm.
But perhaps that is something that can be managed through additional T-bills, NSSF inflows, and things like green shoe options. So it's looking less likely that we're going to get a big step up in the dated borrowing program for Q4 compared to what has been announced so far.
Right. So, what would your view be on direct monetization by the RBI? Because it's been almost 4 to 5 months that all of us have been taking into consideration fisc monetization. Do you think this should be now be the right time, or it will really be delayed if the RBI does not really go forward for it?
See, I'm not so sure anymore that it's required, where the size of the borrowing program and with the liquidity measures the RBI has announced, things like doubling of the OMO sizes, etc. Yields are very much stable, which means that the bond market is indicating that they can absorb what has been announced so far. So as long as the OMOs continue at a reasonable pace and other liquidity measures continue, I'm not sure that there is any more a need for an urgent direct
Hmm.
monetization. I think the secondary market operations looks like those are going to be adequate. Now, if the borrowing program has to be enhanced further, then it's a different issue. But that's not the base case that we are working with now.
Hmm. And overall, what would your assessment be of the LTC scheme or the festive bonuses that have been announced in terms of the advanced schemes? Do you think that's something which could probably lead to a temporary boost to consumer sentiment and economic activity? Or do you think that's something which is going to be the driving force as well?
So we think that this is something that is going to further exaggerate the festive season sales and then taper off after that. I don't think it's something which is going to necessarily be very durable after the festive season is over.
Right. And overall, with the increased borrowings that we see by the center and the state, is there a concern that could be raised with regards to the fiscal crisis?
Well, as of now, we're looking at Government of India's fiscal deficit being somewhere in the range of 7.4 to 7.7%
Hmm. Hmm.
FY21. And state governments, like I said, they're going to be capped by the amount of borrowing they can undertake. So they'll just have to cut expenditure. So there, our expectation is that the fiscal deficit will be around 4.8% of GDP on average. So that's basically the numbers that we're working with. We are in a crisis. How we manage the crisis is basically something that is going to differentiate different economies. I think for a country like India, given the kind of interest cost that government of India has to face and the state governments have to face,
Hmm.
to some extent, that has guided the expenditure policy in this year. And therefore, at least, at ICRA, we are not penciling in huge fiscal deficits of 9% or 10% of GDP coming in from Government of India alone, because we do think that they have been able to stave off a lot of less necessary expenditure this year because of the management measures which have been put in place. So I'm not sure we should use a term as strong as a fiscal crisis. It's definitely a difficult, very challenging situation for
Hmm.
managing fiscal health anywhere in the world. But I'm not sure we're in a full-fledged fiscal crisis.
Right. So, what should be a realistic fiscal target over the medium to long term, according to you?
From this situation, I think that Government of India could consider pulling back to a fiscal deficit of maybe 5% of GDP next year. See, it's still going to be a bit uncertain at the time that the budget estimates for FY22 are being prepared. We're not going to have a full visibility of the revenue recovery going into FY22. So there is going to be some amount of uncertainty into the revenue estimates as well. And I would imagine that maybe a fiscal deficit of about 5% of GDP is something that the market may also find reasonably appropriate, and something that the borrowings commensurately can be absorbed by the market. From there, perhaps a roadmap to come back to at least 3.5 to 4% of GDP over the next 4 or 5 years would be something that the market would like to see in terms of a fiscal roadmap which is credible and sustainable.
Right. So with this, when we talk about growth, again, inflation becomes hand in hand, where the argument has always been whether the government needs to ignore inflation right now to concentrate on growth, or they need to be really tight with regards to where their inflation target goes. And clearly, it's not just food prices, it's COVID as well, which has actually pushed inflation higher right now. And we've remained above that 6% mark over the last couple of months. How do you see that trend moving?
So on the inflation side, I mean, it definitely is a difficult situation that we gotten into where, even though demand collapsed in the early part of the lockdown, we didn't see a commensurate fall in inflation. And as demand is recovering and stabilizing over the last few months, we've seen core inflation sort of start inching up and become very sticky. So it's clearly a very difficult situation as far as inflation is concerned. But for the government, we think that making sure that spending is happening in areas with a high multiplier effect and where there is more of a feel good factor and more of a job creation that can be created, especially through various types of capital expenditure and infrastructure. That is definitely something that should be prioritized, and we think that also will be prioritized over the next year. And inflation, hopefully, some of the structural bottlenecks will start taking care of themselves. Labor availability has been highly uneven for the last several months. So, even as that sort of normalizes, we are hopeful that some of the constraints will start easing out and that inflation will become somewhat less of a problem over the next few months.
Right. And very lastly, Aditi, the last RBI monetary policy, the stance has been accommodative. Now, the liquidity measures that were announced as well, clearly it's a very mixed view coming in with regards to the next rate cut. Talking of the RBI stance and with what's happening in the global money market, how are you expecting bond yields move, in India from here on? Because uh, the clearly our long-term interest rates in India there's a major correlation that's happening with the global financial markets.
So, in my opinion, the local rates are going to be more driven by RBI, its accommodative stance, and its liquidity infusing measures over the next several months. The budget will be very important, as will be the size of the borrowing program for the coming year. But I do think that as long as things like the OMOs continue at a regular pace, that yields will remain relatively contained and not be a true reflection of the underlying fiscal situation.
Hmm. So are you expecting a lot of FI money that could be flowing into the money market, taking India's bond yields into consideration?
We think that there is going to be more money flowing into the equity markets from the FIIs than into the debt markets. So, relatively speaking, we think that
Hmm.
there's a greater likelihood of funds coming in into the equity markets
Equity.
than into the debt markets.
Right. All right, Aditi. Pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for sharing those views and those insights with us once again. And it was a pleasure to have you on the show at Nirmal Bang. Thank you once again and stay safe till we speak the next time once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.